Hello, I'm Declan Harvey. The headlines in Northern Ireland this evening. Concerns over how the PSNI used journalists' phone numbers to check if its officers or staff were leaking information.
A free press cannot function under the shadow of state surveillance.
And I have made the decision that those lists will be deleted and that will not happen again.
This high-profile loyalist has had his prison sentence for firearms offences doubled by the Court of Appeal. A judge says military statements from Bloody Sunday can be used by the prosecution in the trial of Soldier F. The mum of a young man with complex needs says the care system is failing him.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. When he was at school, at least he had a couple of hours break, when he went out to school.
Swimming warnings are in place at 2 beaches on the north coast after high levels of blue-green algae were detected.
The countdown is on to golf's Ryder Cup between the USA and Europe. Join me in New York for all the latest.
And this fine spell of weather is set to continue for another few days. I'll be back with a full forecast, including a look ahead to the weekend.
Welcome to Wednesday's BBC Newsline, 24th of September. This evening, serious questions have been raised about press freedom and policing in Northern Ireland. It's after a critical report revealed how police spied on some journalists and lawyers over more than a decade. The investigation exposed how surveillance was used on reporters, running their phone numbers through covert databases to try to track leaks from within the PSNI and also identify their confidential sources. A senior barrister was asked by the Chief Constable to look into exactly what had been going on after a legal challenge was brought by 2 local journalists, Barry McCaffrey and Trevor Burney. They were among those unlawfully targeted. In fact, the report said there were 21 unlawful uses of covert powers to attempt to uncover reporters' sources. That's twice as many as had been previously disclosed. Now, it must be said the report found this kind of monitoring of journalists and lawyers was not widespread or systemic. However, Amnesty International said today what has been exposed is a disturbing pattern of unlawful covert surveillance, and it accused the PSNI of showing a clear disregard for press freedom and the rule of law. Here's our crime and justice correspondent, Julian O'Neill.
The report finds that overall there was no widespread or systematic surveillance of journalists between 2011 and 2024, but it's far from a clean bill of health. 21 times the police acted unlawfully by prying into reporters' phone data. And there were also legally dubious operations which used journalists' phone numbers to check for leaks from within the PSNI.
I don't think blanket searching of journalist numbers should have occurred. It hasn't occurred since I've been here. It stopped, I think, in March 2023, and I have made the decision that those lists will be deleted and that will not happen again.
The review was ordered amid allegations the targeting of journalists went far beyond Barry McCaffrey and Trevor Burney, who have won court cases against the police. And those who have watched this story unfold believe further action is needed.
A free press cannot function under the shadow of state surveillance, and that is why our organisations have written today to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Hilary Benn, to ask that he set up a full public inquiry to explore and investigate and expose the extent of covert surveillance of journalists in Northern Ireland.
And it wasn't only journalists who were the subjects of interest. Surveillance was conducted against these 2 solicitors who claim it relates to appeal proceedings by 2 men jailed for the murder of police officer Stephen Carroll.
The police, by conducting covert surveillance against Dara and myself in one of the most serious criminal trials in this jurisdiction, has clear implications. The courts must now re-examine the safety of the conviction of Brendan McConville and Wooten.
The report runs to 200 pages and members of the policing board were among the first to read it.
I absolutely do not think that this is over. I think there's further work that needs to be done. It's not a clean bill of health. Yes, they said that it wasn't systemic, but there are serious issues.
When you put the number of actions that took place in all of this, while it may not have been systemic, it was certainly huge in the actions that they carried out, and especially in these trawls. It took a lot of work and a lot of surveillance work, which we now know much of it. Certainly an amount of it was illegal, was unlawful.
This issue is far from over. There are multiple cases on the desk of the Investigatory Powers Tribunal in London, and they involve not just the PSNI, but also MI5.
And Julian's with me now. Will there be more revelations?
I think there undoubtedly will be because of those legal cases I mentioned in London. We understand there's maybe as many as 14 complaints have been lodged with the IPT. They're under assessment, but some of those cases will definitely progress. And we know that they not only involve the PSNI, but also MI5. So I think there will be more damaging revelations to emerge around this general theme of surveillance of journalists over the next few months.
What is your assessment of how damaging this all is for the PSNI?
Undoubtedly bad, but it could have been much worse. I think the Chief Constable was very keen to underline that key part of the report as he saw it, that this was not a widespread or systemic problem. That said, there are clearly some serious issues here that the PSNI have to address, and there are a raft of recommendations made off the back of this report. I don't think there was a single bombshell revelation today. I think what we learned had previously been signposted through other disclosure processes like court actions, but a lot of detail, a lot of flesh was put on the bones, and it's not a great look for the PSNI, and they acknowledge themselves that there is a job to do here in terms of rebuilding trust and rebuilding public confidence.
OK. Julian, thank you very much for stepping us through that. There is, of course, further analysis of the report and what is contained within it, 200 or so pages, on our website this evening. The address is on your screen. You'll also, of course, be able to find it on the BBC News app. Now, the high-profile loyalist Winston Irvine has had his prison sentence doubled for having guns and ammunition in the boot of his car. Judges at the appeal court agreed with prosecutors who said his original sentence of 2.5 years was unduly lenient. They also agreed that Irvine's peace-building community work was given too much emphasis. Michael Fitzpatrick has more.
Winston Irvine was arrested in June 2022 after police found firearms and ammunition in a hold-all in the boot of his car in North Belfast. He pleaded guilty and in May was given a 30-month jail term with half to be served on licence. At the time, the judge said he'd considered references which described Irvine's character and long-term commitment to peace-building in Northern Ireland. Irvine's co-accused, Robin Workman, received the statutory sentence of 5 years in prison. Lawyers representing the Public Prosecution Service challenged Irvine's sentence at the Court of Appeal, and today senior judges ruled the 2.5-year term was unduly lenient. A barrister representing the PPS argued there were no exceptional circumstances in Irvine's case. He claimed Irvine's crimes were a gross breach of the confidence placed in him by those who had provided the character references, which he said should have been treated as an aggravating factor. Senior judges backed prosecution submissions that Irvine's reputed community and peace-building work were wrongly treated as exceptional circumstances. The 3 appeal judges found the references only amounted to points of mitigation about Irvine's good character. The Lady Chief Justice, Dame Siobhan Keegan, said there were no exceptional circumstances regarding the offences, which she said should not be viewed in a vacuum, given the lack of an explanation by the defendant about why weapons were found in his car. She added it would offend public confidence and frustrate the intention of Parliament if the minimum sentence was not imposed in this case. The senior judge declared the original sentence was unduly lenient and replaced it with the minimum sentence of 5 years. Michael Fitzpatrick, BBC Newsline, at the Court of Appeal.
It was an important day in the case of Soldier F, the only soldier to go on trial over Bloody Sunday in 1972. The judge has ruled evidence that prosecutors have described as decisive can be included. Soldier F's real identity can't be revealed for legal reasons. He denies murdering James Ray and William McKinney, as well as 5 further counts of attempted murder. Catherine Morrison reports.
Soldiers G and H were with Soldier F on the ground on Bloody Sunday in 1972. In the hours after, they gave statements to military police. They also gave written and oral evidence to the Widgery Tribunal later that year. Today, relatives of those killed and wounded on Bloody Sunday arrived at court to hear if that evidence can be admitted to the trial. Last week, counsel for the prosecution called it decisive evidence. However, a defence barrister said it was unreliable and should not be allowed to be used. In a brief hearing in front of a packed public gallery, Judge Patrick Lynch ruled that statements from the 2 former soldiers can be admitted as evidence in the trial. The judge said it would be inappropriate for him to give his reasons for the decision at this stage. The trial is now set to resume. Outside court, the family's solicitor welcomed the ruling.
The admission of this evidence has been described as decisive evidence by all parties. Families are very, very pleased that the judge seen merit in the prosecution submissions, and it's a bad day for Soldier F.
A veteran spokesman gave this reaction.
The judge's decision today will be met with great disappointment by the veterans who served in Northern Ireland. Apart from that, I'm afraid I can't say much more, as the trial will now continue and it wouldn't be appropriate to do so. Thank you.
The trial has been adjourned until Friday, with evidence from civilian witnesses expected to be heard on Monday. Catherine Morrison, BBC Newsline, Laganside Courts in Belfast.
All right, well, still to come on the programme this evening, and after much speculation, the Irish presidential election officially gets underway with just 3 candidates now in the race. Because of the pressure on school places for children with special educational needs, it was revealed today that one young person is having to make a 50-mile round trip every day from Downpatrick to West Belfast in order to get to school. Another is having to make a return trip of 2.5 hours in a taxi every day in order to get to class. It's come out at an Assembly Committee hearing. With me is our education correspondent, Robbie Meredith. How did this come up? Tell us more.
Well, MLAs in the Education Committee were looking again at some of the issues around support for children with special educational needs. And this comes in the context, as you say, of some of the problems around getting school places we've seen in recent years. The Sinn Féin MLA, Pat Sheehan, he raised the issue of school transport, and he mentioned this particular case.
I'm talking to a principal in a primary school in West Belfast who has a number of specialist provision classes in his school. There's a child being taxied every day back and forth from Downpatrick. Now, just for the week, I'm sure that's costing close to £1,000. How is that value for money?
A wee bit later on, Declan, the UUPL MLA John Burrows, also mentioned the case of a child who was spending 2 hours and 40 minutes in a day in a taxi just to get to and from school. And the Department of Education officials called both those cases unacceptable.
Are there any improvements coming down the line to this? Anything been done?
I think it is wrong to say there haven't been some from the Education Authority. We've seen fewer children waiting long into the summer to get a school place this year, for instance, although a month into the school term, there's still around 80, was the figure revealed today, who haven't started school yet because their classrooms aren't ready. So it still seems that getting some vulnerable children a suitable school place in the right place at the right time is proving a bit of a challenge.
All right, Robbie, thank you for that. Well, the problems for younger people with special educational needs don't end there, because next we hear from a mother who is desperate for help for her son who has just left school. Susie Ward says her 19-year-old son Owen is being failed because now there's nowhere for him to go. She says he's at home and it's taking a real toll on him. Our Northwest reporter Kieran Tourish went to meet them both.
19-year-old Owen Ward has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, autism and ADHD. His mother Susie, a former specialist A&E nurse, says he has complex needs and can at times present with challenging behaviour. But she says her son, who can be lively and full of fun, has always made progress in places where he's able to mix with his peers.
I have found that since he's left school, his behaviour has become more challenging, and he has regressed because he really needs to have a busy day, and he just needs to have opportunities. He needs to have something to do.
Owen Ward finished school in Strabane in June, and since then he's got some support from 2 respite workers for around 10 hours per week. He's able to go to a recreational club for 3 days for 90 minutes each time. But his mother says it's not enough. He only sleeps 2 hours each night, and that has a draining effect on her.
I feel exhausted. Sorry. I feel some days how I'm going to get through it. Sorry. Yeah, it's really, really difficult. When he was at school, at least he had a couple of hours break, when he went out to school.
Owen was offered a place by the Western Trust in a setting which his mother thought was inappropriate, as it's primarily designed for elderly people, many of whom are vulnerable. She believes politicians should enshrine a post-19 system and law where the needs of young adults with complex needs are met.
I think the system is broken. I think the system needs to change. I think the system is letting no one down.
The Western Trust said it recognised the significant challenges for young people with learning disabilities and their families as they transition into adult services. It said that after careful consideration, care plans are put in place to best suit the needs of the individual within current services and in line with the funding available. The Trust said it's aware of the family's concerns and will continue to engage with them. Susie Ward says she can never really rest or relax, looking after her son Owen, who she clearly loves, but who is very demanding. She says she's not alone, and there are many families out there facing a similar challenge, dealing with a system which is clearly, she believes, not meeting the needs of many young people. She says it's time for change. Kieran Turish, BBC Newsline, Derry.
A man accused of being behind a pipe bomb attack on an East Belfast GAA club has claimed he was threatened and forced to phone in a bomb threat by a group of men he didn't know. 58-year-old John Wilson is charged with having explosives. He denies it. Our reporter Rory O'Reilly is following the trial.
It was here at Henry Jones playing fields in August 2020 that a number of pipe bombs were left on car bonnets close to our East Belfast GAA train. 59-year-old John Wilson is charged with possessing explosives under suspicious circumstances, as well as further offences of attempting to intimidate GAA members from attending or playing sports at Henry Jones playing fields, charges he denies. Today at Belfast Crown Court, the defence began laying out its case, with Mr Wilson taking the stand.
When asked about the day in question, Mr Wilson said he went to visit a friend's grave and then went to Henry Jones playing fields to walk his dogs when he saw 3 or 4 men standing around. He said 2 men in their late 20s, early 30s confronted him, threatened him and told him to go to the Ballygowan Road to make a phone call about the devices. He said they told him they knew where he and his children lived. He said he just did what they said out of sheer fear and panic, adding that he didn't make any devices or touch them. He said, "I had nothing to do with them."
The jury of 7 men and 5 women were also shown various text exchanges between Mr Wilson and his contacts in the days and weeks leading up to August the 5th. One was a conversation with a friend where he said he had another bright idea. When asked in court what this was, Mr Wilson said he planned to start a petition against the GAA team from using the pitches. He also had explained that he planned to organise a football match at the pitches before the GAA team trained, as well as marking them off with cones so he could train his dogs. The trial is due to hear closing statements tomorrow. Rory O'Reilly, BBC Newsline, Belfast Crown Court.
Now, people are being warned about the dangers of swimming at 2 beaches on the north coast. It's because of high levels of blue-green algae there. We're talking about Portstewart and Downhill beaches. Officials, though, are also watching the water quality closely at nearby Castle Rock. Our Agriculture and Environment correspondent Louise Cullen has been.
This is just the second algae-related bathing ban on the north coast this summer, and it's the first time there's been a bathing ban here on Portstewart since the crisis began back in 2023. This development is, of course, a big disappointment, not just for visitors to the beach and dog walkers, but also for the year-round sea swimmers. And Nicole, you're from the Menopausal Mermaids, you're very disappointed.
Very disappointed, yeah. After yesterday, we had such a beautiful day and there was a large group of us went swimming. I think we're in the water maybe about 20 minutes. And we had plans to do the same again today, and then we got a call last night saying no can do, so we're very disappointed.
Obviously nothing last summer. We remember how bad 2023 was. How were you feeling about the whole crisis? Were you hopeful that it wasn't going to affect you this year?
Especially with nothing last year, absolutely. But this year it did seem to be a little bit worse. And we know obviously the river bands, we're at the mouth of the ban here, so we knew it was going to probably come our way. But at least it wasn't July, August, the main summer season. So it's really the locals and a few tourists it's going to affect. But yeah, disappointing nonetheless.
So how long do you think this could last? How long do you think you'll be out of the water? Have you any idea?
Absolutely no idea at all, but it's better to be safe. And we see DARA down here regularly taking samples, so we've got to respect them and respect their findings and just, yeah.
But hopefully be back in the water soon.
Hopefully back in the water soon enough, yeah. We miss it now.
Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC Newsline. There are some people on the beach still this afternoon, some people walking their dogs. This is the third year of algal blooms. They've been extreme this year. There's a huge quantity of algae in Lough Neagh. Of course, that comes from pollution coming from agriculture, wastewater and septic tanks. There are solutions being looked at. Those are pilot engineering solutions. There are monitoring being looked at. There are also regulations for farming. But scientists have told us that these blooms are going to recur for many summers to come. And as long as the blooms continue, well, bathing bans along the north coast will always be a risk. Louise Cullen, BBC Newsline on Port Stewart Strand.
Well, we can now expect one of these three people to be the next Irish president. They are the small group who will appear on the ballot in October's election in the Republic. The winner will, of course, take over as Irish head of state from Michael D. Higgins. Catherine Connolly, here on the right, is the independent candidate. Jim Gavin and Heather Humphreys will run for the two main government parties. Let's learn more about them from our reporter Kevin Sharkey, who's standing by in our newsroom. Evening, Kevin. Where do you want to start? Tell us more about them.
And they're off, Declan. These three candidates will have the field all to themselves, and they have just over 4 weeks to each convince the Irish public that they should be the next Irish head of state. Quite an august position. Now, the former GA manager in Dublin, Jim Gavin, will represent Fianna Fáil, the biggest party in government. Fine Gael will be represented by former Minister Heather Humphreys from the Protestant community in County Monaghan, and Catherine Connolly will be an independent TD candidate with the support of a broad band of members of the opposition parties and the opposition individuals as well as many others. So they have it all to play for now. 4 weeks to try to convince the Irish public, Declan.
And just remind us why Sinn Féin have appeared to sit this one out, Kevin.
Yes, a lot of eyebrows were raised when Sinn Féin finally declared at the weekend that they would sit this one out and support Catherine Connolly. So Sinn Féin will not have its own candidate from within the party in this election. The thinking on Sinn Féin's part is that this is, if you like, a declaration of intent on behalf of the broad band of opposition left-leaning parties to move the present government out of government in the next general election. It's quite a strategy, and a lot of people will watch this election to see how that strategy ultimately stacks up.
Kevin, thanks so much. Kevin, you'll continue to help us follow that as Kevin Sharkey. Now, the eyes of the sporting world are on New York this week, where the best golfers from Europe take on the USA in, of course, the Ryder Cup. There it is. Europe are the defending champions, but are looking to win the event on American soil for the first time since 2012. Setting the scene for us at the venue, Bethpage Black, is Stephen Watson.
For 1 week every 2 years, golfing loyalties are split. Fans who normally simply cheer their favourite player pick a side. Europe's star Rory McIlroy may still be the biggest draw in the sport, but the Americans are doing everything to rouse the home support.
USA on three. 1, 2, 3. USA! USA! USA!
What's the reason the game of golf exists? You know, you got great players, but obviously the reason why we're here is for the fans to entertain and have a great time and to win the Ryder Cup. I know you're on the opposite side of the coin, but we want to win really badly here.
We're from BBC Northern Ireland, obviously, so you know what the question's going to be. How much would you like to go head-to-head with Rory McIlroy?
It'd be great. It'd be an awesome match. I'd love to go up against him. We've had some good battles. Hopefully, I'd love to battle with him this week and come out on top.
There's also a difficult allegiance for one Belfast man here. Coach Justin Parsons is part of the American backroom team.
Fortunately, I've been lucky enough. This is the third Ryder Cup that I've done, and I did a President's Cup as well, which obviously isn't as personal to us, but it does feel a bit strange. I went out of the 10th tee there, and the New York fans came in for the first day today. I think there are going to be 40,000 of them here today, and there's a big chance of USA coming up, and I'm standing there in the USA hat and things. And so, you know, I had a bit of banter with some of the other coaches and things, but you know, for the most part, we're all kind of pros at what we do in here, and we know we've a job to do, and we've got to go and try and execute that.
Ryder Cup merchandise is big business, and at the heart of it, a local company, which has also designed and provided the European and American accessories.
We will be 20 years old next year. We've started a small Northern Ireland company. We've now got 19 distributors going across 35 countries, and we're an official supplier to both teams here this week at the Ryder Cup. We supply all the majors, so we had a great open up port rush this year. We do all the head covers, towels, putter covers, everything, you know, for both of the teams.
On the course is the players' focus naturally, but off it, it's a busy week, including team photo shoots and a gala dinner with their partners. There's also an official opening ceremony which will take place a little later today, 24 hours earlier than scheduled due to storms forecast. Then one more morning of practice tomorrow, when we'll also hear from Rory McIlroy before the start of play early on Friday. Stephen Watson, BBC Newsline, New York.
Well, we can but hope he'll bring us back a mug from New York. Stephen Watson, their continued coverage from the Ryder Cup throughout the week, as he was indicating. Now, this is from Limavady. Imagine it's this morning because of the angle of the light here. Busy time, of course, for lots of farmers. Thank you to Sarah over sending this in. By the way, if you want your picture there, just find the BBC Weather Watchers online. Cecilia's here. Yes. Actually, for this date in September, I was talking to Jeff about it last night. We seem to be okay.
No, it is. It's been really, really nice. Everybody's getting out for their dog walks. It's dry, no muddy paws at the moment, which is brilliant. And it's good enough to get your washing out in the line as well. But there has been a heavy dew in the mornings. So don't forget, obviously, Declan, to wipe the line. You'd never forget to do that anyway.
That's not the kind of thing I would forget.
However, my husband quite often has to be reminded. So we've had lots of lovely weather pictures coming in today. If you were out for a drive, for example, it looks as though these guys were taking a drive up the Antrim coast there towards Glenariff. Beautiful scenery. It always looks nice when the sun's shining. And also the orchards are doing really well with this slightly warmer than average weather for the end of September too. So it is going to be another dry night. The weather's not really going to change that much for the next couple of days due to our area of high pressure, but there are changes coming in for Friday night. So we'll come back to that. Tonight, like recent nights, where skies stay clear for long in the countryside, temperatures could drop to 3 or 4 degrees, but there'll be slightly more of a breeze compared to the last couple of nights, so not as cold. Still the chance of a bit of mist and fog for a time tomorrow morning, but that shouldn't hang around too long. And yes, it'll be a chilly start, but it looks like it's going to be another lovely day. Quite a lot of sunshine to come, some areas of cloud building, especially lunchtime and into the afternoon, but generally more sunshine than today. And despite slightly more of a breeze coming in from the south, 17, possibly 18 degrees tomorrow. That's a little bit up on today. Tomorrow night it'll be dry and quite clear, but a little bit breezy in places, so that should keep most of any potential frost or fog away, although temperatures will still drop down into mid-single digits in places. Now we have some changes coming away. I mentioned a change on Friday night. It's this weather front which will bring rain in, quite a wet night Friday night. Timing of it clearing on Saturday morning could still change, but it will improve during Saturday. A fine day to come on Sunday, and a new area of high pressure building in for next week. So daytime Friday, it stays dry across the island, but with quite a keen southerly wind. In fact, quite gusty winds by the end of the day. Still some decent temperatures, but here's the rain. You can see it behind me in the Atlantic. That comes in through Friday evening and Friday night. It will still be lingering in some places on Saturday morning, and the timing of how quickly it clears is still subject to a little bit of uncertainty. So it looks as though there will be some rain for a time, at least on Saturday morning, but hopefully drying up for the afternoon and evening, slightly cooler, and then dry conditions and reasonable temperatures following for the rest of the outlook.
Thank you, Cecilia. Interesting, it's been warmer than average for September. I think you can feel it as well. News being updated all the time on our digital pages and, of course, every hour on Radio Ulster. We'll see you tomorrow, 6:30. Bye-bye.